Apple, love, hate, scarousal.
Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
So a few of you might remember my face, even just in passing. I'm not super famous or anything like that. But my face from a video Jonathan Morrison made a few months ago addressing scam claims after the infamous 2018 MacBook Pro i9 and Throttlegate. Apple is
Scamming you.
with the 2018 MacBook Pro 15-inch.
Yo guys, Jonathan here. Hope you're doing well. I'm excited. I am pumped up, worked up. It's another Apple release, another controversy. This one we might as well dub Throttlegate. But go ahead and kick back, relax, because it's going to be interesting to say the least.
In brief, I said that Apple was scamming consumers by selling a product with such blatantly misleading performance figures, especially surrounding the Core i9, or the Core i9 variant of the 2018 MacBook Pro 15. Basically, the chassis and thermal design couldn't handle the i9, but Apple wanted to charge you up to $6,700 for a fully spec'd Core i9 MacBook Pro. That's a little shady. Now, to be fair to all the Apple fanboys and girls, before you start slamming your butterfly keyboards, just hear me out. Windows-based thin and lights couldn't handle the i9 either. Those Windows machines throttled horribly as well. The entire industry was guilty of trying to be the first to cram a Core i9 into thermal designs they knew couldn't handle it. I'll give you that. That rubs me the wrong way as well. But here's the thing. The difference on the PC side is that you still had the option of getting an i9 in another portable device that could handle the thermals. There are a myriad of Windows notebook manufacturers. You simply don't have that choice with Apple because of Mac OS. The only Mac OS laptop with a Core i9 is, as of time of recording this, the 2018 MacBook Pro 15. Apple does not offer you even the option of purchasing a more thermally capable design. If you want a Core i9 in an Apple notebook, you have only one choice, and you will pay dearly for the Apple privilege of running a crippled i9. This is not the case in the Windows ecosystem. You have a choice. And no matter what Windows machine you buy, for the most part, you can get it serviced wherever you want or even service it yourself for the most part. But more on that Apple gripe in a minute. To balance the scales and shake off any notion that I am a purebred PC fanboy, which I'm not, I recently threw Microsoft under the bus for their baffling, dare I say, insulting omission of Thunderbolt 3 and Type-C altogether on their Microsoft Surface Pro line. Now, in a mind-boggling twist, you do at least get the Type-C, although not Thunderbolt, on the cheapest base model Microsoft Surface. Why is this borderline egregious? Because the PCIe lanes available for Thunderbolt 3, Microsoft is using that for their own proprietary connection. So if you want a dock with extra ports and expansion, screw you, you have to buy a proprietary Microsoft dock. Now, the reason I'm trying to balance the scales a bit is to hopefully assure you that my bias is not towards Apple or Microsoft or PC or whatever. It's for the consumer. If I see Apple, Microsoft, or whoever being deceitful to the consumer, I will call it out where it exists. Now, if it seems like Apple takes the brunt of the tech community's criticism, it is because they are a massive trillion-dollar company. But you know what? There's another reason as well. But before I get to that reason, I need to point out another unforgivable issue Apple is unfortunately spearheading and therefore deserving of sharp criticism. And honestly, this makes any fanboyism trivial, as it really affects all consumers. If Apple gets a win in this matter, consumers will suffer no matter brand allegiance. Okay, so Apple has a long history of ensuring very few options for repair service. Apple wants to make sure you bring your device to the geniuses at the Apple Store. Now, it doesn't take a genius to see the implications here. If Apple controls the diagnosis and repairs, they can gouge the consumer with wild abandon. Apple has been stung by this many times, with many examples of taking advantage of customers coming in for a repair that should cost basically a few dollars, only to be quoted hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. In fact, Apple employees often suggest the repair is so expensive, you might as well just buy a new one.
So what are my options now?
What I was going to say is basically all the components that we need to replace is going to cost more than $1,000. So
To fix it entirely will cost more than $1,000?
yeah. The display we may not need to replace, but we're still looking at a total of around $1,200 there.
Wow. So just to be clear, there's no cheaper alternative for this?
I mean, that cost is very close to the cost of buying a new computer. In terms of fixing it in the store, no.
Louis Rossman. He started fixing computers in college and now makes YouTube videos teaching people how to repair complex items. We brought him the computer that the Apple Store in Toronto said was not worth fixing.
Have a seat. So this is a MacBook Pro that the Apple Store said would cost $1,200 to fix and wasn't worth doing.
We'll figure that out once we open it up.
At the Apple Store, they suggested this was water damage.
Well, you can see that there are water indicators that have turned red, so that's why they got that idea, and they're by the battery. So this is a water indicator, and these turn red when they see liquid. However, the thing here is that these not only turn red when they see liquid, they also turn red anytime there's humidity. All right, so let's plug this back in and hope for the best. All right, as you can see, we've got an Apple and we have a light.
So it fixed.
Yeah, now...
That took you like 1.5 minutes?
Maybe.
So if I walked in off the street with this problem, what would you charge for the repair you just did?
If somebody wanted me to just bend the pin back, I wouldn't charge them for that. I would say, I'm going to rework your original cable. That may not last long term, but here, it's free. If they wanted us to replace the cable, depending on the model, anywhere from $75 to $150, depending on the difficulty of opening that model. But something like this we wouldn't charge for, and 99% of the time, just bending the pin back, it'll allow it to last until the end of the life of the computer.
This isn't conspiracy theory. Louis Rossman is a hero in this arena. He and many other outlets have exposed this issue. Apple's deceitful practices are old news, and dare I say, accepted or merely ignored by the Apple devout. And if you're one of the Apple devout getting pissed off that consumer advocates like me and a lot of the tech community keep bringing this up, you need to put your ear right up to the speaker right now. You need to give me your undivided attention because this is critical for you to know. We are criticizing Apple, not you. You can purchase whatever you want with your own money. And it's completely fine that you choose to buy Apple products. I have an Apple product. I have an iPad. If anything, what I and my peers are saying is that you, the Apple customer, deserve honesty and options for your money, your hard-earned money. Now, to get back to specifics, the most recent rotten apple that we're dealing with is the fact that the new T2 chip can brick your device. If you take it in for service and your device isn't first hooked up to a proprietary Apple diagnostics device first. Proprietary Apple diagnostic devices, you bet your butt they will never allow outside of a designated Apple repair center. Apple has increasingly limited your options for repair and increased your odds that you'll continue to be duped into paying $1,000 for a $30 fix.
So you went to the Apple Store, and what happened after you went to the Apple Store? What did they tell you?
They told me that the GPU needs to be fixed, the motherboard, and the display. And that would cost $1,200 altogether.
This is a MacBook Air, which does not have a graphics chip. It only has a CPU and inbuilt graphics. So what exactly did they say needed to be replaced again?
The GPU, motherboard, and display.
Well, you now understand more than a genius, because if they replaced your logic board and your screen, they would have actually never replaced this cable that communicates with the hall sensor, and it still would not have worked after you paid $1,000.
And they said just buy a new computer.
So you now know more than a genius. Well, enjoy your working computer. Just got to put your screws in. And you all can look up what this cable costs on the internet if you're interested. It's 821-1722.
This cannot be tolerated by any company. And this brings up new legislation being put together for 2019. In a nutshell, for the sake of speedy argument, the Right to Repair Act. The Right to Repair Act would make it illegal for companies like Apple to limit repair options for consumers. You bought the device. You should be able to repair it wherever you choose, if not even repair it yourself. So if this legislation fails, or Apple somehow beats it in court, it wouldn't be long before other companies follow suit. In simple terms, you couldn't get your car repaired anywhere else but at the dealership. And if that's the case, the dealership can charge you whatever they want, knowing you literally can't go anywhere else. Not to mention all the repair shops that would just go out of business. So I've made my scary points. And again, to the unapologetic Apple fans, this is not an attack on you or your purchases. You are the consumer. I want the best for you, just like anyone else. But in Apple's case, especially you. So anyways, on that note, I mentioned that I'd say something good about Apple. And really, this good stuff I have to say ties into why their business practices have been so inexcusable. Apple makes gorgeous hardware, and macOS is undeniably amazing. So it's a shame that Apple does this kind of crap. So for me personally, other than the iPad I just showed you, I'd buy a MacBook today if I wasn't so invested in Windows. And really, it's only 2 programs and 1 activity keeping me from making the jump. So for audio work, I use Cakewalk Sonar, and for any video work, I use Sony Vegas. I also have a healthy Steam library, and developers don't really optimize gaming for macOS. Now for audio, I guess I'd have no problem moving over to Pro Tools. I'm actually certified in Pro Tools, I just prefer Cakewalk Sonar. For video, however, that's a little easier. I'm not a professional video editor, obviously, so at this beginning stage of me learning video editing as I go, it probably wouldn't be a problem to jump into Premiere or Final Cut now. And Premiere is cross-platform, and so is Pro Tools for that matter, but Premiere is optimized for Windows, and Final Cut, of course, is only on Mac. So as I'm putting my thoughts together here, it looks like my transition to Mac could be relatively painless, and it's really not like I'd altogether give up on Windows, I just use both. So then, I guess like everything else, it comes down to money. As for hardware, I could get a low-end MacBook Air, or on the Windows side, a Huawei MateBook X Pro with a full quad-core CPU and discrete NVIDIA GPU. There's more bang for the buck staying with Windows. Plus, I'd have to buy Premiere or Final Cut and Pro Tools on top of buying a comparatively underpowered MacBook Air or even a 13-inch MacBook Pro. But I really want one. And there's really the rub. macOS is amazing and the hardware is beautiful. You know, I think at the end of the day, I'll eventually get a MacBook Air, if anything just to keep a Mac in the stable. I just watch this Right to Repair issue closely. In other words, Apple has scare-roused me enough to maybe give in to temptation. Alright friends, PC and Apple fanboys and girls alike, you're all welcome here at Geek Therapy Radio. That's one of my main tenets. All are welcome. If you have any advice or something to add or correct something I missed or got wrong, please comment below and share your knowledge. That's what Geek Therapy Radio is all about. Sharing knowledge. I'm just one guy. There's no possible way I alone could know everything. In fact, I can be wrong sometimes. So just jump in, let's come together and fill the gaps. If you like my channel, please subscribe and don't be a stranger. I really don't care about your politics or brand loyalty. We have so much more in common that we can share together. So get subscribed and let's share all that geeky goodness we have in common. Take care, everybody, and be good to yourselves and others. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast in your favorite podcast app. All right, see you later, for real this time.